I am so thrilled to lead off this year as we did last year, and I'm especially delighted to have this panel of women sitting here. I will introduce them to you in just a moment. First, I want to echo the thanks to our Common Hour committee. This is a fabulous piece of F&M culture. It's one of the reasons I wanted to come was because we stop everything on Thursdays at 11:30 to talk to each other about really significant things. My thanks to Student Affairs and the pizza servers, all of those who make, yes, let me give you a round of applause. There you are. We applaud you for so much you do, not just serving pizza. Thanks for stepping up today. So thanks to everybody, including those of you who come regularly. This organization, this Common Hour thing that we do, is part of the continuous success of Franklin and Marshall, keeps us fresh and keeps us honest. It's a cornerstone of how we work and what we do. So thanks to our F&O colleagues as well, by the way. It's no mean feat to set up in here for this, especially after having turned it around quickly following convocation. So our colleagues from F&O, we really thank you for the relief from, today's a beautiful day, but you know what the August heat can be like. I want to do a quick exercise. I talk about the 50th anniversary of readmission of women as opposed to 50th anniversary of coeducation because you may not know that Franklin College at its inception in 1787 was open to both men and women. It was very unusual in that regard. So when about 160 odd years later we got back to that, it was circling back to a very enlightened position that Benjamin Franklin had instituted at the college that bore his name. So we are also celebrating now the 50th anniversary of the readmission. I would like to do a quick exercise, which is to ask all women graduates from Franklin and Marshall currently in the room to stand, please. Would you stand up? Thank you. Thank you so much. There are a lot of you scattered through the hall, and it's a great proof that F&Mers come back. They find their way back in all sorts of capacities, and that's one of the things we'll have a chance to talk about in a moment. I would like to recognize one person in particular, and that is Dr. Alice Drum. Alice, would you rise for just a moment, please? Talk about game changers. Dr. Drum made such an enormous difference on this campus in her years here as an administrator, including as the founding director of what was then the Women's Center, and it is no surprise that we now have the Alice Drum Women's Center, correct? So thank you, Alice, for everything you've done to transform this institution, to change this game. And I also want to recognize the current director of that center, Chelsea Raymond. Where are you, Chelsea? I saw you. There you are, right there. Chelsea, as you know, is the director of the Alice Drum Women's Center and LGBTQ Student Life. So that wonderful organization continues to morph as we need it to. Thank you, Chelsea. I brought a prop. I was going to wear this, but I was worried you couldn't read it from your seat. So let me just flash it at you. Okay. CFW, the Council for Women, was founded on the 40th anniversary of coeducation, so 10 years ago exactly. And on the back, this is my favorite part, those of you with good eyes will be able to read it. Female and male, F&M. It's a great shirt, it's my favorite. There is apparently another unauthorized version of it that says, Council for Women, on the back it says, putting the F back in F&M. Okay, So enough show and tell, because I want to spend as much time as I can with these wonderful women on stage. Let me introduce them to you briefly, and then what'll happen after that is that I will ask them questions to give them a chance to reflect upon their F&M experience and their relationship to the college now. But first of all, let me tell you who they are. You may well recognize all of them or some of them. At my near left, on your right, is Professor Cynthia Krom, class of '80. Cynthia Krom graduated from F&M in 1980 and returned as a member of the Business Organizations and Society faculty in 2011 after a couple of dozen years teaching elsewhere. As an F&M student, Cynthia crafted a special studies major, listen carefully, with a focus in environmental science, and never took a single business course. But in the true spirit of a liberal arts grad, she later pursued a master's in accountancy and then did a Ph.D. in organizational psychology. Professor Krom teaches accounting as well as a senior seminar on fraud and white-collar crime. That's rich territory. Her fundamental research question is the exploration of why good people do bad things. It's interesting to note that not only Cynthia, but also her father and her sister attended F&M, and her uncle, Harry Lane, was a beloved biology professor here as well. Michelle Flatt, 99. Michelle C. Flatt graduated from Franklin and Marshall College in 1999 with a degree in English. She minored in Africana Studies. She earned her master's degree in educational leadership from the National Louis University in Chicago. As an undergraduate at F&M, Michelle was president of the Black Student Union and participated in the African Dance Group, F&M Christian Fellowship, Cultures United Seeking Solutions, Chamber Singers, Gospel Choir, Band, and intramural sports. She was a busy woman, and she also served as a residential assistant. Now, on top of all of that, Michelle earned Dean's List recognition for 6 of her 8 semesters at F&M. She's the quintessential F&Mer. She received the prestigious Charles S. Dana and William Gray scholarships and was awarded the Muhlenberg Goodwill Award as a senior. Michelle's career began as an English teacher at University City High School in Philadelphia. She transitioned to school and district leadership roles in Chicago, Illinois, and Mount Clair, New Jersey, which led to the position of proud principal of Team Englewood Community Academy. Now Michelle brings her passion for change and commitment to equity to AnitaB.org. I urge you to look it up online, where she serves as the Vice President of Programs. Michelle's goal is to actualize the AnitaB.org mission for a world, to quote from their website, where the people who imagine and build technology mirror the people and societies for whom they build it, unquote. The organization, Anita B., works on helping women grow, learn, and develop their highest potential, and particularly in the tech world. On my furthest left, on your furthest right, we have Salina Almanzar, class of 13. Salina Almanzar, oh, I heard some recognition already, is a Puerto Rican and a Dominican artist, educator, writer, and social justice advocate. Her art and scholarship examine the intersections of Latinidad, feminism, decolonial practice, and Taino spirituality. Could you say it right for me? Okay, Taino, there you go, thank you. She's specifically interested in what it means to be ni de aquí y ni de allá, neither here nor there, from that liminal space, part of a diaspora that is between spaces and between cultures. She's from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and graduated from Franklin and Marshall College in 2013 with a double major in studio art and English literature. She spent about 2 years working in galleries and museums in Philadelphia and Lancaster City before deciding to pursue a master's in arts administration in 2015. She completed the Arts Administration and Museum Leadership graduate program at Drexel University in June of 2017. There, she completed a thesis examining creative placemaking in the Lancaster Latinx community. She has since continued her research through continued data gathering via story sharing, as well as serving as co-facilitator of the Latino Empowerment Project. Salina was elected to School District of Lancaster School Board and is the youngest and first Puerto Rican elected to the board. Salina also serves as a teaching artist in Lancaster City Parks through Lancaster Public Art, and we have the great good fortune of having her as a colleague here at F&M on campus as our photography technician. Please join me in showing your appreciation for these distinguished women for making time to be here today. We're going to pass the mics back and forth, and I invite you, all three of you, to jump in on any question. They're all intended for all of you to answer as you get inspired, and we'll just let this conversation grow organically. We will halt at the usual time for the very important question and answer session. So we're going to mirror a little bit the organization that Kim Armstrong laid out for us, and we're going to start with exploring the past. By the way, I have learned you have to talk right into this thing, okay, to get to those back reaches. Okay, so I want to ask you to talk about how your days at F&M in 3 different generations of women actually launched you towards what you're doing today. And I am happy to start anywhere with any one of you. Who wants to go first? Okay, go Michelle.
I can go first. I'm always brave to go first. So let's see. F&M, being at a small liberal arts college is very different from the rest of the world. For those of you who've graduated, you'll find yourself in a completely different space. You kind of feel like you've been a big fish in a small pond. I did way too much when I was on campus. I don't even remember doing all that stuff, y'all. I don't. But when I got to my experience as a teacher, the school in which I taught was literally the same size as F&M. And so as a young person coming in, I was 22. I was teaching a group of students who were almost the same age as me. They were students who were returning from incarceration. And I had to learn to be brave in a space where, you're used to kind of having to, I just had to be brave. And so when I was on F&M's campus, I also had to be brave. Professor Carla Willard is here, one of my favorite professors, and she taught us a lot as Black students on campus about how to share your voice. And so in that position, coming into the school, people expected very little of me as a young person teaching this group of students. I literally had one of my students say on the first day, "We're gonna run you out just like we did the rest of the teachers before us." And I was like, oh, this is a little bit intimidating. But I said, "You're gonna love me by Friday or I'll quit. How about that?" And the students were like, "Oh, she's crazy." But that craziness and that boldness was something that I did get when I was in F&M because I had to be bold. I had to take chances on a campus where everybody wasn't necessarily welcoming and inviting to me.
Yeah, I've been reflecting on this a little bit because I started here in 2009, so it would have been the celebrating 40 years of coeducation, so it's kind of a weird full circle moment. I had my graduation here too, and then I'm like here all the time. But there are things that I think I did not expect coming into F&M. So I grew up in Lancaster City on the south end, and it's a very different community than it is here. And I remember walking past F&M, I remember like playing in the park near F&M and kind of always wondering like what goes on inside of there. And now I know very intimately what goes on inside of here. But I think that sort of what it's in my bio, that living in the liminal space has been really beneficial. And I totally hated it. I thought that after high school, I was gonna get the hell out of here. I was not gonna be in Lancaster City. Lancaster City is also not what it is today. When I was even a senior in high school, freshman here. So I feel like having witnessed that experience and then having the privilege of going here, getting an education here, and now working here has been a blessing because I can sort of Robin Hood back into the community that I'm from. So while the community might not know, like something like this is available to anybody in Lancaster City, they can come to Common Hour because I have that connection with folks still on the ground and still like on the south side. I can bring them in. It doesn't always work, but I think the fact that there's a familiar face here has been really helpful. And most of the work that I do outside of my art and integrated into my art, but outside of my position here is so rooted in community and specifically like the Latinx community and where I'm from. So I feel like I couldn't have done it. I couldn't be where I am right now without having gone through F&M or being part of F&M now.
I came in at a very different time when women were new to campus. And I felt myself incredibly fortunate to have one of the first and only female professors at the time. Ruth Van Horn taught my organic chemistry classes. And women were not heavily represented in the sciences here. That, for me, was a struggle because I knew I didn't want to be a doctor. That's not what I was interested in, but I wanted to be in the sciences. And at that point, it was all about going to medical school. And we had just a very small percentage of the students in most of my classes were women. So that was a real challenge for me at the time. I was also challenged having come from a very tiny little rural town in central Pennsylvania where diversity meant somebody was taller than you, or maybe had a tattoo. And I got here and I was exposed to so much that was so different than my personal experience. And only being at a place like F&M would I have felt very comfortable getting heavily involved with the Green Room Theater, even though I was a science student, not a liberal arts kind of person. And I was very active. I still can't quite figure it out, but I was really active in the Black Student Union, which was very, very impactful for me. I made wonderful friends that I'm still in touch with today. And an environment like this where exploration is not just possible but encouraged is what enabled me to continue to grow for the next 40 years after leaving here.
I have a specific question for each of you. So, Salina, could you expound a little bit more about that question of being from Lancaster City and therefore different than most of the students you were going to school with, right? Yeah. You have that complex, rich relationship with the city and with the campus. Mm-hmm. What did that mean to you?
Yeah, I think it honestly made my first year a little tough, but I'm better for it. So I'm, with the south side of Lancaster, there's this sort of invisible wall. It's like an economic wall. It's a wall where residential properties literally change, and you can see it. So south of King Street, once you're downtown, is very different and has historically been. And having done research and using books by F&M professors like David Schuyler has been really helpful for me to understand where I came from and where I grew up. Whereas here on the north end, it's a much more economically advantaged area. It's still diverse, because I think Lancaster City in total, it's like almost 50% people of color in this community. But significantly less diverse in the south end. So coming to F&M was an even more stark change in terms of economic difference. I think I was one of 5 to start out commuting students. Then that dropped down to 3 by our second semester. My family actually moved my sophomore year from the south end to West Walnut Street in order for me to not have to walk so far, because I was walking from Howard Avenue all the way out here, and that was crazy. I also started pre-med, so I was like lugging all of these books. I quickly realized that pre-med was not my track. But part of it was this experience of literally walking through the city and seeing these distinct changes, and then entering this bubble and feeling simultaneously like I belonged, because I was like one of the smart kids in high school. I felt like I was among peers, but then also simultaneously feeling incredibly behind, because it felt like I didn't know what an alma mater was coming here, and I felt so dumb asking what that was, or I didn't know what houses were. Like, they explain it on the tour, but it's almost like there's this inside community, or this community that has inside scoop, that I didn't get necessarily when I was here. But I think having had that experience and being where I am now, just involved on the board for School District of Lancaster, I can sort of bridge that divide and say, like, maybe we do need to explain things a little bit more. Maybe we do need to take what we have here and push it out. So in the positions that I have now, I've been able to plan events and purposely plan them at places like San Juan Bautista or places like King Elementary School that are in the heart of the Southeast. And it's F&M, but in different space than it is totally usually.
Thank you. So Michelle, if you'll take the mic, you came a long way. We had the privilege of inviting Salina and Cynthia to walk over to campus with us, right? But you flew in from Chicago. What was it that was powerful enough in this event and this invitation for you to come and join us?
50 years of women, 50 years of protest from Black students. You know, F&M is an interesting place because it wasn't always a great place for me. But then I have these amazing friendships, you know, and amazing growth and learning. I look at Dean Drum and I think about how many ways in which she was encouraging to me individually, how like I could go to her office and sit down and talk to her about challenges that I faced, not only as a Black student, but also as a woman. And being invited to come here and share my experience is so important. When I was here, Black women in particular weren't, there were more Black women than men my year, but in general, it was just a completely different experience for us on campus. And so whenever Black women alum came to campus, we were like, oh my gosh, there's a Black woman who I can talk to about her experience here. And so for me, it's really important to come back and share that opportunity. Although now there are many more students of color on campus, and it's like you can walk through and no one even notices. Whereas when I was here, we would all kind of like run up to random people on campus, like, please tell me how you survived going to school here. Because of our experiences. So I'm really proud of F&M now. I'm proud of the growth that has happened since I graduated 20 years ago, 24 years, 20 years, it's been a long time. I'm proud of that growth, and I want to celebrate it, and I want to take every opportunity that I can to share. So I was just thankful for the opportunity.
We're going to get back in a minute to all the work that we still have to do, and we'll circle back around to that. But for the moment, Cynthia, you've flipped your position in the classroom, right? Mm-hmm. You now see the students in front of you who are on their own, embarking on their own adventure the way you did. How can you help them differently because you've been in that chair?
Oh, I ask myself that every day. First of all, I love being on the other side, and I cherish my students, and I really try to encourage them and to help them understand that no matter how today is, tomorrow can be completely different, and opportunity awaits. And so being able to talk about how my life has morphed, I think gives people hope. And right now, one of the things I take great joy in is the large number of international students that I have in class. That was not the case in 1980, not at all. And I treasure having that variety of perspective and background. I think that all I can really do, other than basic content information, is to try to help inspire them and give them the confidence to move forward in whatever path they choose and not feel locked in by race or by gender or by what they think their major is going to be, and parental expectations and all that sort of thing, to help them understand that life has so many opportunities and it's okay to pursue the ones that matter to you. It's your life.
Okay, so that is a great segue to what we've been talking about at Convocation, at the convening dinner, about not letting anyone else define you, but in defining your own path from F&M and then beyond out from there. Each of you represents that transformation as you moved into different sectors. So Salina, you talked about having those heavy pre-med textbooks, right? And here you are, a publicly engaged artist doing fabulous work in the community, with the community. I want to flag that your work, your murals, you and your partner are featured on the opening page of the Lancaster City website right now, and that photograph or a similar one was on our website.
That's fabulous.
So, how did the pre-med major morph into public art? And then for Michelle, how did the Africana Studies English major morph into women in tech? And Cynthia, you've made 3 different shifts in field, from bachelor's to master's to PhD. Can you talk about how you found your way and how this liberal arts education actually helped you do that?
Yeah, I think about that frequently because I seriously thought I was going to be a gynecologist. That was like the line of work that I wanted to get into. I'm one of 7, so I spent a lot of time with my mom, like in an obstetrician gynecologist office. And I was also really interested in how I could use like what I was good at. I was really good at biology and anatomy and physiology in high school and was obsessed with it. But I also realized like I was obsessed with drawing bodies and like picking them apart and figuring like, oh, how do you see this bone under the skin? And I thought, oh, okay, the only way I can use this is to be a doctor, obviously. And I also was very invested in trying to figure out how to help people, and specifically women of color. And understood that like women's health is an issue, but it's something that still definitely comes up in my work. And I think being at FNM taught me to be nimble. And being I hate to say forced, but I'm sure a lot of students feel that way, but being forced to take classes outside of your intended major.
Should we say being invited
And
strongly to take courses outside their major?
Opportunity. No, that definitely helped. I was also always interested in art. I had taken every art class I could possibly take in high school, and they actually had to create a section for me so I can keep doing it. So I decided, like, when I dropped pre-med, I decided to enroll in a drawing class because that's kind of where I felt the most comfortable. And then I thought, well, maybe I can be a teacher. And I think coming from a low-income background and coming from a family of I'm 3rd generation, but still a family of immigrants, there's sort of a diluted understanding or a concentrated understanding of what you can do. So you're a doctor, a lawyer, like very simplified, and those are the successful things. So I thought, if not doctor, teacher, because that's just what I knew. And I thought, well, maybe I'll be an English lit major, and that's how I become a teacher. I don't know. But that actually taught me just like really good critical thinking and how to read between the lines, and that's been imperative in my work as like a community-based artist and organizer, and using those tools to talk to people and hear between the lines of what they're saying. So they might tell me something about their community, but I can also hear a different nuance, not just because I'm from here, but because I have those skills that my lit major taught me. And then I thought maybe I would work in museums because that's the only way an art person can get a job. And then I tried it, and it felt so distant from the community, and I didn't really think that's what was happening. But when I quit and started working just myself and community-based organizations or churches that were trying to integrate art or use art as a way to communicate, I quickly realized that I can use all of those skills that I had and all of the ones that I didn't think I needed and developed here at FNM to do the work that I'm doing now. I don't know if any of that made any sense. But
It makes total sense. It's the liberal arts story, yeah. And Michelle, before you start, I want to say that Michelle came to my attention when I attended the Bridget Awards ceremony in the spring. Those are awards that are given by the African American Alumni Council, and Michelle was recognized for the incredible work she has done since she graduated. And as soon as I saw her and heard her speak, I said, we need that woman back on campus. So you very modestly did not put that in your own intro that you wrote for us, Michelle, but pick up from wherever you like and tell us your story.
That's a scary offer, but thank you for acknowledging it.
I'll limit that just a little, in 3 minutes.
I can do it in 3 minutes. I started out as a psychology major, actually, and I had planned to minor in sociology, and I learned very quickly in Psych 101, 100, whatever the first level was, that I was terrible. There was nothing about psychology that I did well. I do like picking people's brains, but there's much more to psychology than that. And so I was taking English courses and started to really fall in love with it. And like you mentioned, being gently swayed to take classes outside of your major. I also took an economics course, and Professor Flaherty was here at the time. I don't think he's here anymore, but he encouraged me one day in class, because I really thought I was going to be an attorney. Like, I was going to major in psychology, with like the crime scene version of psychology, where you pick people's brains when they're on the stands, which is not what attorneys do. If anybody thinks that's what attorneys do, just remove it from your mind. It's not what they do. They read all day long. So in that course, he said to me, you'd be a really great teacher. And I was like, I mean, I've taught like Sunday school and children's church. I could try this thing out. It was like a great suggestion. I tried it for a summer, fell in love with it, became a teacher. I thought I was going to be a teacher for the next 20 years of my life. And when I was teaching, then somehow someone was like, you should be an administrator. And I was like, no, they have to do paperwork all day. I don't want to do that. They're like, no, you're a leader, which is something that is part of our learning here at F&M. You really do learn how to lead. You don't realize it so much, but you learn how to lead in a small environment that's highly competitive. You're no longer the smartest person in the room, and you have to figure out how to get your voice out there. So I became a leader, and kind of fell into these leadership roles and was a principal. And the very long story is that the school that I was leading and loved, Team Inglewood, was closed. And it was closed because of changes in the, basically I could go into a lot of political activism, but it was closed. And my former colleague, Brenda Wilkerson, who is now the CEO of AnitaB.org, reached out to me and said, hey, do you want to come over and be my vice president of programs? And I was like, Brenda, I'm a principal, right? And she's like, yeah, I do. I know what you do. And she's like, you bring people together. Your skill set is bringing people together, helping to break down silos, working against all odds, because my school, if you know anything about Chicago, and if you hear the word Inglewood, people associate it with violence, they associate it with poverty, they associate it with everything that could possibly be negative, versus the beauty, the culture, the history, the folks who've come into that community and just built up so much of what Chicago means. And she knew that I was able to show the beauty of that community, able to break down some of the silos that existed between our school and the outside community. And she said, you should come on over. And I'm like, I still think you're a little bit crazy for inviting me to do this. But the vision that we talked about is what told me it was the right work for me, because I believe in that mission and vision where you're changing technology to represent the women who are up here, the men who are in the room. And I decided, okay, I'll try this. And as a result of trying that, I've been able to go to multiple countries this year to talk to all of these women who feel disenfranchised because the tech culture is a bro culture and it blocks them out. And the work that my team is doing is opening doors. So it's a little, my answer was a bit convoluted, but I will also say that activism is one of the opportunities that all of you should take advantage of while you're on campus. I love that Cynthia said she participated in the Black Student Union, because you need to be involved in what it means to change things for everyone, not just for yourself, not just for people who look like you. So that really is like my own mission. It's why I do my work. I miss desperately being a principal. It's my favorite job in the world. I love the work that I do right now because it has an impact. So F&M supported me in becoming that activist and figuring out how to really be the change.
Cynthia, could you have imagined, small town PA girl, could you have imagined yourself back here in the boss department teaching all those white collar crime?
Not on your life. One of the really nice things, though, about the business major, the boss major here at F&M, is that it is not really a pre-professional kind of business major that you see at big universities. We are very much taking a social science approach. It is part of the liberal arts curriculum here. And that really matches with my own personal trajectory, because I started out as a scientist, and I worked as a scientist in laboratories and doing occupational safety and health, and that exposed me to a lot of different kinds of business. Then I decided, well, let me learn more about that, and I did my master's and learned the language of business, which is accounting. And it's a tool, but it's not an end in itself as far as I'm concerned. I became really interested in the uses and abuses of accounting and said, well, what is making these people do these horrible things when they're generally good people? And so I decided to pursue my doctorate in organizational psychology and really look at things like motivation and satisfaction and senses of justice and that kind of thing. And I get here to F&M, to our BOSS program, where all of those things can come together. So I can teach accounting using examples from science, using examples from criminal justice and that sort of thing. And it's not just, oh, be sure that you put the decimal point where it belongs and follow this one rule. That's really boring if you ask me. I'd much rather talk about how these tools are used and how society can benefit from them and what we can do to make the world a better place by having a better understanding of what business means in the context of our global society.
I think you've just rehabilitated accounting for all of those of us who didn't incline that way earlier on. I want to make sure we leave time for questions, so let me ask you one more question each about inspiring the future. I say over and over, and we're developing the language for this because we need to be in the vanguard of this. F&M needs to be in the vanguard. That diversity of all kinds, all markers of diversity, including diversity of thought, very importantly, that kind of diversity is a necessary precondition for excellence for a community. And we need to practice that here every day. It creates an environment in which everyone is dealing with the unfamiliar and everybody needs to grow into it. So we know that we've got a lot of work to do, even though, and by the way, it was just your 20th reunion, Michelle, just doing the math for you there. So in the 20 years since you graduated, and a fair bit longer for you, Cynthia, and a significant amount of time for you, Salina, we have made progress, but we know we're never, ever going to be done with this work. This fall, we're launching a campus climate survey, and I ask all of you to fill out that survey when you get it, because that data it gives us will tell us what we're doing well and where we still need to do a whole lot more work. But could you, from your own experience, help us think through in a few sentences what F&M can do to keep growing into ourselves and reflecting not only Lancaster City, Lancaster County, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the entire country, but also how do we do this on a kind of global diversity, equity, inclusion, and beyond model? I'd love your thoughts if you've got anything on that one. It is a huge question.
But what immediately came to mind is develop a sense of belonging. One of the things that we talk about in our work a lot, because we're a diversity, equity, and inclusion organization, is developing belonging for people, making them feel as if this is a place for them. And when I was at F&M, that meant the Black Cultural Center, it meant the Women's Center. I can't remember what it was called, something similar to the Writing Center. But these were places that felt like home away from home. The International House was another home away from home. And that sense of belonging, I think, is essential because that is what allowed me to survive campus when things weren't so, like it was rocky when I was here in terms of race and social justice, but I knew I could go to the BCC, illegally cook in the kitchen at that time. It was not really allowed. I hear it's been renovated. I get to go look at it. But that sense of belonging was created by those spaces and also the professors here. I mean, the fact that Carla's my friend on Facebook. I mean, there's a way in which you engage with people and create that sense of belonging. So that is what I think breeds the power that comes out of an F&M education.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was thinking the same exact thing too, because I think for me being like basically first gen and a commuter and having all these other intersections of my identity, along with being a woman of color, along with being like one of not a lot of Latinx folks, it's very different now than it was even when I started and when I graduated. And Mi Gente Latina had a different vibe altogether, and it was I think we weren't as politically inclined because we were sort of in our Obama bubble where everything was kind of okay. And seeing where everybody is now and seeing the progress that Mi Gente Latina has made, seeing Define American doing the work that they do, I feel like we're making headway. But for me, the writer's house was my home away from home, and it was the place where I belong, partially. I see Joe over there. With Joe and Carrie's leadership and being part of the College Dispatch, it really encouraged me to develop my voice and to talk about the hard stuff. So it was actually on the College Dispatch that I started to explore what it means to be a Latinx woman on campus. And it was just sparked by conversations that we had, because we were just a weird group of kids hanging out there all the time, doing whatever we wanted. We were legally allowed to cook, but we made huge messes all the time. And I think that amount of freedom was crucial for me feeling like I belonged. And I think now in my work, I'm part of the leadership team for the People of Color Alliance on campus. That's majority faculty and professional staff. And we're actively talking about the intersections of our identity, not just through race and ethnicity, but also in our positions here on campus and what those hierarchies mean and do and how we work through them. And I think I probably couldn't have done that without having been part of the Writers' House and understanding what an affinity group means and how important it is to have that one place on campus where I feel safe and I don't have to explain myself and I can fall apart if I need to, or if I can be a total goofball if I need to. So I think embracing that and understanding that those spaces are not divisive. Everybody has a space like that. They might not recognize that they have that safer, brave space that they go to, but slapping the name on it for some folks incites this idea that, oh, well, now you're dividing the campus and everybody has a label. But I think that's how we find each other, when we're able to self-identify and figure out where our affinity groups are.
Bring us home.
Gosh, that's hard to follow up. I think one of the things that we can do at F&M is something that we're pretty good at doing, and that is empowering people. We're giving them skills, we're giving them opportunity by virtue of the courses where people are slotted in with different groups all the time. You're forcefully exposing people to a lot of different aspects of diversity, lots of differences. And I believe that one of the things that I, as a member of the faculty here, can do is to really encourage people to reach out and talk across the aisle and not just sit in the little bubble of the people you know, eating the food you know and the language, speaking the language you know, and talking about the politics that are yours and pretending the others don't exist. And I think that's something that F&M has done well and can always do better with, is to really try and build the bridges and, dare I say, not build walls.
Speaking of empowering people, we will turn to the question and answer. And as is our tradition for Common Hour, F&M students are invited to come to the microphones first. There's one at the end, at the head of this aisle, and one at the head of this other aisle. If you would like to ask a question of these guests, please come forward. But while we are waiting for you to line up, would you give a large round of applause to these three wise women? If you'd like to ask a question, please come up. I open that to faculty, staff, community members. Would anybody like to come speak? Great, here they come.
All right, hello everyone. All right, so my name is Bonnie Page. I'm currently a junior here, and that still sounds a little weird to say out loud. So I came in my freshman year as a first-generation student, a low-income student, a Gray Scholar, and as a woman. And I love that you all mentioned belonging, and that was something I was thinking about this entire time. And I feel like something I struggled with the most as a first year and considered transferring because of it. How would you women say that you go with not only like having that sense of belonging, but finding those places? Because I feel like it's really difficult sometimes to navigate it when you feel like all you're seeing is people who are very, very distant and disconnected from your lifestyle.
ourselves up here. I can talk. I can speak to that. I think. Well, I'm social, so that helped me find people. But I think, because you mentioned you're a junior, I think when I was probably the second semester of my sophomore year, that's when I really started to realize like who my people were. And how to also extend out of the initial comfort of sitting together with the Black students in lunch or breakfast or dinner. We always sat together. But learning how to find other people, how to expand my voice, how to explore different things that weren't comfortable at first, and that actually, and telling people that I belonged there. Because it's like that shift between, okay, how do I find my group? And then saying, wait, I'm on this campus. I have access to everything here. So I'm going to make sure that I go to everything here. So I think that's what it's like. You find your sense of belonging, but then you also create a sense of belonging for other folks by going to spaces that other people didn't.
Thank you so much.
And I can follow up with that too. I think so. I'm an introvert, and it was really difficult just coming here and then not living on campus, and all of the orientation stuff is house based. I was bond check, but like my ID didn't work to get into bond check, so I often just like stood outside the window and peeked. No, I'm just kidding. No, but they tried to include me, but the fact that they were actively trying and trying so hard made me feel like, oh my God, this is the worst thing ever. But the writers, again, the Writers House, I signed up for their pre-orientation. So I was here a whole week before campus my first year. And I feel like the dispatch was the glue, because there were moments where I was like, maybe I should just transfer to a bigger university where I can disappear a little bit easier. And the Writers House was the place where I disappeared to, but I think with Carrie and Joe and the folks that were leading at the time, they kind of knew that, and Carrie would often like pull me out, and this is Carrie Sharon Wright, so Professor Wright would pull me out of the publications office and just be like, you need to go to this talk. And it might have been uncomfortable at first, but then her pulling me out of my discomfort was really helpful. So for me, honestly, it was finding professors that I admired too, even in the art department, that became my friends. I still cat sit for them. We're like still really good friends and colleagues now, so it's really great. But I think just the social scene on campus has changed significantly, so I feel like it's a little bit better even than when I was here, where it was mostly just Greek life, and if you didn't participate in Greek life, then it was like, what are you doing? But I think even finding community in the places that I thought I was hiding was really helpful.
Let's see if we can get through the three other question askers. Let's go to this mic.
Hi, my name is Michael Torres, Bonchak Best House. I just want to thank you guys for coming to this event. I just want to ask, if you were to time travel and meet yourself from when you were a freshman in college, what would you tell yourself?
One sentence each. What would you tell your freshman, your first year self?
It gets better.
Get some sleep.
I don't know. Remember who you are.
Thank you.
So, as usual, F&M students ask great questions. Over to this mic.
Hi, I'm Anne Stitra from Spanish, and I have a question for Salina. Do you have any projects going on in the community now, and is there anything we can do to support you?
Yeah, I am. So every summer I do this thing called Art Pop. It's been happening for 2 years now. And we're actually we've wrapped up Art Pop, so it's basically me popping up in a park and making that my studio, and I work with folks in the community. We paint things, we weave things, it's great. But now we're working towards a mural to replace the one that President Almanzar mentioned. So that one was pretty temporary, it was wheat paste. Now we're trying to install a more permanent version of that, and that'll start September 16th and through the week of the 23rd. So I have a Facebook page, you can follow me, where I generally announce when I need volunteers. So thank you for plugging that, Anne. And Anne has actually signed up to volunteer with me. And then I also will have other community-based projects that I can't really talk about right now, but we'll be announcing on the Facebook page. So I'm always looking for students or even faculty and staff that just want to get to know the community more and get dirty.
And I should alert you, Salina has work in the show that just opened at the Phillips Museum here on campus. It's a show called Fresh that showcases F&M faculty and staff, so you can go and see some of her work there. Last question, and then we'll close down.
Hi, my name is Tinian. I'm a first year Boncheck House, and my question is geared towards all of you. How would you propose we start these important questions in and out of the classroom that challenge negative views of each other and our backgrounds?
That's a really powerful question, and one that I am sure every faculty member on this campus struggles with, as well as students and administration, because hard questions are also scary questions, and people have a lot of trouble feeling comfortable in spaces and figuring out, is this a safe space for me to open up and talk about what I really care about, or do I need to just kind of pretend that everything's okay and say the things people want me to say? I do struggle with that. And one of the things that I really make an attempt to do for my own students is to give them opportunities to communicate with me and communicate with each other in ways that aren't always face-to-face, and that allow them to take a little time to feel confident about their language and take a little time to feel confident that they're saying what they want to say, how they intend to say it, without immediately getting shut down by the way other people are reacting to what they say. But boy, that's only one little step. I wish I had a better answer than that.
I can say quickly, when I was here, we started Cultures United Seeking Solutions. I don't think it still exists. It was called CUS, but it was an outgrowth of conversations with people across difference. I think we used to sit in the Women's Center and have the conversations, and literally we made some old school flyers. I know it's social media, you can do something on Instagram or Twitter, but did some flyers and we're like, meet us at 8 p.m. on a Thursday night if you want to talk about the intersection of race and gender on campus, or if you want to talk about what it means to be a Black international student versus a Black American student, or whatever. We would put some sort of provocative question out there, and we set agreements at the beginning of the conversation about how we would, just the norms about how we would speak to one another, and then we'd open the space and have some of those difficult conversations, and they were amazing, awesome. Tears were shed, people yelled, but it helped us get to know each other better.
That, dear friends, marks the end of the first Common Hour. What a great start. Thank you all for being here, and thank you to these wonderful alumnae.